Andor alone, even if everything sucked and we just got Andor, I'd be like, this is a huge win. Like Andor was, I don't care if they had 10 bad shows and Andor came out. I'm like, okay, this is good. But the Ahsoka show, in my opinion, has the potential to kind of be that glue that brings everything together. Ahsoka comes from the Clone Wars era. She's dealt with all the characters from the original trilogies. Ahsoka has been in Rebels. Ahsoka now has a relationship with Luke.
She's been in Mando. She's been in Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. The list goes on.
That's why I said this is
Thrawn as an adversary to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So this show is really, I think, has the potential to be the linchpin or focal point that brings everything together.
What is up, everyone? We're back. I'm Scott. He is Tom, and we are Bad 'Cause Dads. So today we're checking out this new slate of a number of movies and shows coming out in the future here. And I think we're finally entering the realm of Star Wars becoming a lot like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm excited about all these shows. I think it's worth taking a look at, and we're just kind of nerd out here a little bit and get some discussion going about what we will possibly see, what we hope to see, and maybe even what we hope not to see. So let's dive right in here, Tom.
Yeah, lots of news coming out of Star Wars Celebration, right? So
yeah,
big stuff with shows, even some movie stuff. I'm still not caught up in everything. I always go back and rewatch all the interviews when they come out. You know, I want to see. I know Hayden always comes out. That's awesome.
You know what I just watched since you brought up Hayden?
Yeah,
he came out for his interview, and the fans were just going crazy, and it actually brought him to tears, and it was
that's amazing. That's cool.
Me hard because like that's a guy like many of these guys that we've even talked about Ahmed Best before. Like this is really cathartic for them in some ways. They got a lot of shit for their portrayals, but over the years they've become so much more beloved. And man, I've always loved Hayden, and to see him finally getting the credit he deserves, it was really nice to see.
And most of these guys are just portraying the role the way they're being directed. So they're doing the best with the direction they're being given. You know what I mean? And so Hayden seems like a real genuine guy. And so whenever he's out there, I like hearing what he has to say, and his interaction with the fans seems very down to earth. You know what I mean? So
it's genuine, cool. And it's humble, and he's what a cool guy. Like a total dude that I'd love to hang out and just shoot the shit with and have a beer, and like just a great guy.
But with all the stuff that's come out, it kind of got us thinking about, okay, Disney Plus has been pretty strong, right? They've come out with a lot of quality TV stuff. Some misses, mostly hits, at least in our eyes.
Sure.
But there's been kind of a hiatus from movies, right? Since the sequels came out.
They were the last ones, yeah.
And so that just got us thinking, like, what is the state of the movies, Disney movies in regards to Star Wars? Like you said, it seems like to an extent they're trying to do that the Marvel universe, and maybe you can see them trying to do that, but it's not there yet. And so maybe the slate of announcements from Star Wars Celebration as far as the movies and shows go are going to help us get there. So
it's very reminiscent of how the buildup was to the first Avengers, and especially going towards something like Infinity War.
You could feel it coming, you could see it coming together, but until you got there, but it was a big payoff. The payoff was huge.
Yeah. And I hope it's the same.
Well, let's get into the tough question first, which I think we know the answer to, is how badly. Okay, I'll try to be as diplomatic as possible. The sequels, some people really loved them and some people really hated them. There was no in the middle that I could tell, and sometimes that's a good thing. You want an emotional, visceral reaction to art. Art is meant to make you feel something. You know, from what I heard a lot from people who are new to Star Wars is that, we really love these movies because they didn't have a lot of history with where the franchise came from and the characters leading up to that. Yeah. And for the most part, not in all cases, a lot of us, people who are invested in Star Wars from a very young age, intimately know the original trilogy, even some of the expanded universe, novels, things that we've kind of grown up with. A lot of us were not as excited about the sequels.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest example of this I'll bring up is I think when Solo came out, and in my opinion, I don't think Solo is a bad movie.
I don't either.
I thought there's a lot of cool things about it. Is it like a perfect movie? Of course not.
Yeah.
But it actually didn't perform at the box office. It was way under what it should have done, and I don't think that was a result of the movie itself, right? Is that your take on it too?
It was a result of the poor reception of The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Or Last Jedi, was that the last sequel or Rise of Skywalker?
Like before Solo came out?
Yeah. Oh, because Solo was sandwiched in the middle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think The Last Jedi really left a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouth.
The way that Luke was handled, mainly.
Yes.
For the most part. Yes.
I mean, we could do a whole video on the sequels and the problems with it. And like, I get it, man. Some Star Wars fans are genuinely awful people and just
there's a subset of those in every group.
Yeah.
Right? And every group has that subset.
Sure. And like, I've said it before. I love the actors in the sequel trilogy. I have no problem with them. Daisy's adorable. Adam Driver's a hilarious, great actor.
Yeah, they're both great.
John Boyega's awesome. Oscar Isaac, obviously awesome. Like,
Moon Knight,
we can go
amazing.
on and on.
Yeah.
And if you were to take the sequels and put them as a standalone, like we knew nothing about Star Wars before, probably wouldn't be that bad either. But given the history, given the lore that we know, it just wasn't good, in my opinion, when you compare it with what we already have and know. So I mean, we could talk about this forever here, but
this is to set the stage, right? So what we're gonna do is now juxtapose what we've gotten recently with movies to now what we've seen in the TV space, the TV production that Disney is bringing with Star Wars content. And then at the end, I want to circle back and talk about what can the movies do to raise their level up to where the TV shows are, at least in my mind, because I feel like the TV shows as a whole has been a net positive. Like tons of like Andor alone, even if everything sucked and we just got Andor, I'd be like, this is a huge win. Like Andor was, I don't care if they had 10 bad shows and Andor came out. I'm like, okay, this is good. So let's talk about the state of TV. I think it's been some of the best Star Wars content, and I'm just making generalizations. I'm not talking about any specific show.
Yeah.
The production value, the storytelling, like we said, Andor is something we'd never seen before as far as the Star Wars universe, the feel, the grit, almost like a spy thriller, which was amazing. Are you kind of on the same page? Are you overall in a really positive space about the TV, or do you think they miss some things that just makes it average? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that I'm pretty sure you and I have had this conversation before as well. I think when it comes to a story like Star Wars or like the Marvel Universe or any great story you can think of, even let's take The Last of Us, for example. I think TV shows with the great production quality do a better job of telling a story because they're able to stretch it out and develop the characters over the seasons, multiple seasons, whereas movies have a function too. And ever since live streaming became a thing here or streaming services, like the shows have clearly, I think, have become kind of the main content, the where producers want to go because, like I said, they tell a better story. So while I think movies have their places, I think when it comes to something like Star Wars, we're witnessing what happens when you have the time to really flesh out a story.
All right, so we obviously, and recently we're in the middle of Mando right now, which has been amazing. Obviously, some episodes stronger than others, but to your point, they have a whole season to develop characters and to develop a story and see where it goes. Obviously, Bad Batch season 2,
phenomenal.
Ups and downs, but yes, the finale, the ending, the way they handled the clone storyline, all amazing. And Filoni just continues filling in those gaps, of our knowledge base and of the lore that we're missing, the little pieces here and there. So that has been amazing. And so I want to take a look at the upcoming slate of shows that have been announced, and I want to see what we're thinking and if it seems like Disney is going to keep it going strong. And right off the bat, they're dropping a couple on May the 4th, of course, Star Wars Day, that we've learned about. We have Jedi Visions, or just Visions, which is now unfortunately, I have not seen Volume 1, and that's on me. And in the same reason it took me a long time to get into the Clone Wars, animation is just not always my thing. So
samesies.
But have you seen the trailer for Visions?
I've not even seen the trailer, and I know you sent it to me.
Well, I watched the trailer. I'm just telling you, Scott. I'm actually pretty hyped. Like it looked like every individual episode is in a different animation style. So some of them are very like anime-esque, but some of them are not. Like it ranges, and so some of them are very live action feeling, almost like the way they've animated. So I think there's something there for everyone, and this actually has me excited. I'm totally gonna go back and watch Volume 1 now.
All right.
Because I thought it was just like an all anime style.
I did too.
Was
the season 1 the same? Or was it?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if it was different or all. I think it was. What was the other short stories that we got?
Tales
that came out?
of the Jedi.
Tales of
which was
Tales.
awesome.
It was, and so I think they're each going to be individual stories like that, but also each story is going to have its own animation style.
Okay.
Which, like I said, some of them really appealed to me, and so I am actually excited. And some of the characters look super cool, and so I do want to go back and watch Volume 1 to see if it's similar. And so the trailer just did a good job. I'm hooked, and I'll totally watch it. And those are, they're appealing to a different audience, maybe trying to bring new people into Star Wars, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
The next thing that's coming on May 4th is Young Jedi Adventures, which I think I want to say there is going to be set in the High Republic era. And give us a timeline. High Republic, what is that like?
Looking like 200 plus years before
Skywalker saga. Yeah. So, okay. So it for sure we're gonna have a group of young Padawans that you're gonna follow. It's a kids show, so very kid style animated. Think of, I don't know, I'm gonna sound like a dad here, like a Paw Patrol or like Bubble Guppies or some kind of like, you know what I mean, like a Nickelodeon style animation show for kids, you know what I'm saying? And Yoda apparently is in it, so that's cool enough for me. I'll totally watch it with the kids.
Absolutely. Same.
Getting into some of the bigger things, and this is still 2023. We have two really big live action shows coming up, and I'll just go in order. The first one being Ahsoka, right? And that one I believe is slated for August.
It is.
They just dropped a trailer, which I really need to go and dissect that trailer more, because I've only seen it once or twice and I haven't really jumped into it. Maybe me and you can jump in and do a look at the trailer soon. Yeah. I don't know. I'm off the charts. Like Andor, if Ahsoka show was the only thing Star Wars did for the next 10 years, I don't care. I would trade everything for an Ahsoka show. So I don't know. What about you?
There's a lot riding on Ahsoka, isn't there? This is a character that we've grown to love over a decade now. Longer than that. Shit. 2008, that first movie came out. So well over a decade now. I think Ahsoka is one of those shows that's going to be pivotal to the story going forward, and I think based on its reception, of how the story is told throughout that, a lot could change with the slate that's even coming right now. And I'm talking not only the story, but the way that it's shot, the way that it's directed. I think that we're gonna have a pretty good indication of where Star Wars is going in the future.
Oh, we could talk like a couple hours about the
Oh
Ahsoka
yeah,
show. I'll bring up just a couple things of why I'm excited. You speak of this like the Marvel universe kind of deal. The Ahsoka show, in my opinion, has the potential to kind of be that glue that brings everything together, right? Because
thus far, yeah.
Ahsoka comes from the Clone Wars era. She's dealt with all the characters from the original trilogies. Ahsoka has been in Rebels. Ahsoka has a hand, knows all of those characters. You know what I mean? Ahsoka now has a relationship with Luke.
She's been in Mando. She's
The
been in Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. The list goes on.
That's why I said this is
Thrawn
pivotal.
is an adversary to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So this show is really, I think, has the potential to be the linchpin or focal point that brings everything together for this new generation of Star Wars movies or TV.
Fulcrum, perhaps.
If you, good one. So yeah, I mean, just for that reason, you have to be excited. And the other reason, and I've heard you speak on this many times, and I'm sure we're going to get into this a little as we talk about the movie section, is the world between worlds, right?
That's introducing the biggest wild card.
That Ahsoka has her, is all very intertwined with that dimension and how that works. And I know people aren't usually big fans of like time travel and moving between, but
sure.
The Marvel does this, different timelines. And so if Star Wars were to do it, there's a potential way to reset or retell stories on a large scale. And so, like I said, we'll get into that in a little at the end. So Ahsoka, huge. Mark it on your calendar, August 2023. I am doing nothing. That night is... My wife has the kids that night. I am in my chair watching Ahsoka. That's right. I love my family. I'm just saying. I'm watching Ahsoka.
You just love Ahsoka more.
So,
and rightfully
the
so.
other one coming in 2023 that we know of right now, if it stays on schedule, is Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have a ton of details on Skeleton Crew. I think what we know of now is Jude Law, I think, is the actor attached to that. And it seems like it's going to be in the Mando timeline. And it's going to be Jude Law and a group of kids. And the way they've kind of described it is kind of a throwback to like the 80s style Amblin movies, like E.T., Goonies style. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I guess this is a good time to ask this question.
Yeah.
Does Star Wars need to remain, like, have the same feel and art style over all its media? Are you okay with it branching out and things being very diverse in the way that things are shot or put together? Does that make sense? Is my question?
It does. And I think we're looking at that through the generational lens. Like, we're looking at our perspective now as, well, you're in your 40s. I'm not. But
shots fired. Okay.
We're looking at it through that lens, like where we are at, you and I are at in life. We want the darker tone. We want the more realistic, raw Star Wars. But like, our kids don't necessarily like that. They'll like stories. So I think while some generations might not be too into some of the content, like, there's something for everyone, and that could be the catalyst that brings people back to Star Wars or brings people to Star Wars. So I like that there's a variety for all types of fans. If it were me in charge, I'd make it all the Andor gritty stuff, right? But I get it, and I see from both a financial perspective and then trying to get a bunch of fans. I see it from that perspective as well. So I'm okay with it. And I think Skeleton Crew could be fun. Like it could turn out really cool. Kind of how I thought Bad Batch was stuff. Not going to be that great at first, but it turned out to be an interesting, unique story.
Yeah, but you're right. I guess in my mind, I don't mind the different styles. Yes, I think Skeleton Crew could be something incredibly fun and lighthearted with some seriousness, I'm sure, mixed in. I'm sure that's how they'll approach it.
Yeah.
But what I am concerned about, and I'll just give one example, right? I think there still needs to be someone at the top with an overall vision.
There does. You're right.
And needs to make a call. So, for example, I know some people probably will resonate, and some people are going to be like, I think this was cool. There's a couple different ways to do it, a right way and a wrong way. The wrong way is you have a biker gang of cyborgs from Book of Boba Fett that look like it's an episode of Back to the Future.
I don't even know how you saw them, man. They were moving so fast in that biker chase. Like,
so I understand what they were going for, and I think it could have been achieved in a more tasteful way. I think it was too over the top. I think it could have been fun still, but when you go back to the original trilogy and you go to, Tatooine or other, it's very gritty. There's people, they have the coverings over their face because of the sand.
What you're saying, man, is what you're talking about is kind of the same thing that you brought up with this point. Like, the two types of ways to approach it clashed. Like, Boba Fett is that gritty. Tamora Morrison is a very good actor. He's got that serious role. I think Boba Fett is a serious character, and we saw this lighthearted clash with Boba, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
And here's where it can work. So I'll just reference something very fresh on our minds: the last episode of Mando. You've seen it, right? The last episode where they go to approach the other Mandalorian group.
Yeah.
Okay, so they go to this city, and obviously you have Jack Black and Lizzo. It's like, it's very tongue in cheek. It's funny, and you have almost I don't even know how to describe it, like a detective, thing.
It was like a Law and Order episode.
Yeah, exactly. Like a funny, I don't know if you ever saw Castle or something like that. You have the two detectives kind of being goofy and going and following the breadcrumbs. And
I thought the morgue scene with the battle droid was hilarious. Like, that's just
all the tropes from those types of shows. They did it. And granted, is it like my favorite episode? Probably not. But they towed the line of what they wanted to do and the self-awareness that they knew the audience would see while still progressing the story in a tasteful way. So I don't mind lightheartedness that's done even within a serious, but like Filoni needs to be at the top, and he needs to be able to say, okay, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yes, this is in bounds or whatever.
I agree.
So yes, that was like a huge rant. I don't even know why I went down that.
It's what the sequels needed and just didn't have. Like, they had no idea where they were going with that at any point.
They had scenes that were way over the top that didn't make sense. You're right.
I mean, Palpatine was not planned, obviously. They knew they'd done screwed up with Last Jedi and were like, we got to do something to get... And then they did that terribly, too. So I get what you mean. There has to be a constant within the all the media.
Right. And obviously, like a kid show, you can make it... A kid show's off limits. It's like in a whole nother category. You can do whatever you want with a kid show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these main shows that have stories connected to the OT need to be handled in a certain way, in my opinion. But all that being said, let's move into the 2024 lineup of what we know so far. So the big one right out the gate is Andor Season 2.
Yep.
So as I've alluded to just within this, session we're doing right here, absolutely love Andor. Love what they did with it. The twists, I mean, the music, the feel, the cinematography.
Everything about that show was perfect. Legitimately.
Yeah. I have no complaints with Andor. And so, and it brought a whole another side of, not another side, but a great way of highlighting how the Empire is affecting the lives of people outside of the Jedi story.
Yeah.
Right? and the building of this sense of, we need to fight back. There needs to be, we need to rebel against this. And, we saw that, from the prison scenes, amazing, just everything.
Well, I just think the touching on the fact of how the Death Star was built, because we're always like, holy smokes, there's this giant space station. How did they even do that?
The size of a planet.
Now we know.
Yeah.
They had prison labor just constantly working day in, day out. Like, it was just, it wasn't huge to the story, but it was a great touch.
Yep. And so, oh man, another banger. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Put another, if we're doing a side-by-side TV versus movies, TV is like way ahead right now.
For sure.
So let's move on to the next one, 2024, The Acolyte, which I think is one you're super excited about, right?
Well, it's the first Sith-centered show. Like, this is going to be all about Sith.
Okay. And I think from the info I have on it, and again, we have very little, but it is I think also set in the latter days of the High Republic.
Yes. It's kind of the in-between between the Republic we know and the High Republic.
Right. And so it's kind of, from what they've said, is kind of like a Star Wars mystery type show focusing on a former Padawan who teams up with her Jedi master. And that's kind of all we have on it.
There's been rumors that we're going to see maybe some Darth Tenebris, some Plagueis, maybe an origin of Palpatine in there somewhere. So, yeah, I wish we knew more, but that would kind of be where I go with predictions.
I think the big one we know is like, what is it? Carrie-Anne Moss is, I think, attached to this one right now. Trinity, of course.
Yeah.
Some other, big name actors too. So that one, like you said, the appeal is, hey, we haven't really seen much, in a lot of Star Wars, we get dark side bad, right? And so our favorite bad guys are people who struggle with that good and evil part of them, and the evil wins out, or they have reasons to be walking the path they're on. And so it just makes your antagonist more personable, right? And you almost want to root for them to be better. And so I'm hoping this really dives into the Sith and just shows more about who they are, because we just don't get to see that or we never really have, a little bit of into the mind of Darth Maul and some of the Clone Wars stuff, but for the most part, we haven't got a real glance into the inner workings of the Sith and the mindset of those Sith and how they become Sith and their origin stories and stuff. So is that kind of what is appealing to you about it?
Yeah, the Sith have always been, and you got to remember too, in the original trilogy, I don't believe the Sith was ever even named. I think they were just called the dark side. They just said the dark side of the Force, or corrupted by the dark side.
Right.
So the Sith is something that occurred after that and into the prequels and in the expanded universe. So I'm kind of curious to see where they finally go with the canon, because even something like Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, isn't canon. We know that KOTOR is, but again, we only have bits and pieces, and I hope that through this and then the next movie we're going to talk about will reveal a lot of that.
Yeah, but obviously I think everyone wants to know more about the Sith. Like you mentioned the video game that we play, Star Wars Old Republic MMO. People love to play Sith characters because it's such it's a novel thing to do that is not seen often. So very excited for that. And then the last thing that we know of, I think, scheduled for 2024 is, of course, Bad Batch Season 3. And that is a fast turnaround. So
it is a fast turnaround.
When they announced that, I was pretty shocked and obviously pleasantly surprised.
That makes me think that there's something they need to tie a bow on there that will definitely lead into the other content.
Yes, I agree with that now that you mention that. I think there is some unfinished, maybe Palpatine storylines, the conclusion of the clones as a whole, which we kind of see the path the clones are going, but I think some people are predicting like a clone rebellion or a clone uprising kind of a deal. And we know they obviously don't win in the end. So kind of seeing how that wraps up is probably pretty important. The other thing that I can think of too, and maybe this is off base, is I kind of feel like Filoni wants to wrap this thing up and put a bow on it so that he can move on to bigger things in a way. As we'll talk about later, maybe movies or being in a role that is more managing everything across, because the Clone Wars is his baby. And so he's got to be the one to finish the story on that. And so I don't know if season 3 will be the last season, but if it is, it is. Okay, they have confirmed that. Okay. So I can see that being another reason. Like he's just ready to, hey, let's get this put to bed, and I
just think they have a timeline. They have a timeline set out, and I think they got to meet it. So they're prioritizing where they need to go with the story.
Yep. Okay. But Bad Batch season 2, amazing. We're here for season 3. So again, TV is crushing right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, and then the last one that I didn't put everything. I think there's a lot of speculation about a lot of stuff, but I think there's one that's doesn't have a date on it, but a Lando show that has been talked about before.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if Donald Glover would be reprising his role.
Sure he would.
But it would be a big miss if they didn't.
That's one of those shows, like, doesn't have to be made. It'd be something that's more fun and casual and kind of an entertaining show, because let's face it, it's not something that's truly pivotal to the story, the overarching story, but it would just be kind of a fun show. Yeah,
totally. I mean, well, think of what if they would have done a solo TV show instead of the movie. Like, not 100% necessary. I know a lot of people wanted Solo to still have kind of like a mysterious background, but that would be a fun show. You know what I mean? How does Han become Han, kind of a thing. So, but either way, okay. So let's make the last transition. Is there hope for the movies? So there are just a couple of movies that have really been talked about. So we only have a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll start with the first one, which doesn't bring me a lot of hope. Not because I don't like the actress, because as you mentioned, I really do. Yeah. And I thought, to her credit, they really, since they didn't know what they were doing with the sequels, it kind of, the actors suffered for it. And I think Daisy Ridley was the perfect choice for her role.
Same.
But they didn't do her justice as far as I'm concerned. But what they've done is there are rumors that, hey, they're going to bring Daisy Ridley back.
As Rey.
Maybe as Rey. And maybe in a like rebuild the Jedi Order type of movie. We're not 100% sure yet.
Yeah.
But that's maybe the speculation. And
yeah.
I don't know.
So
go ahead.
I mean, we don't have a lot to go off here. So I think all that really matters is, I think most fans would agree that Daisy Ridley deserves another chance. Absolutely. Under good direction and good writing. And I think given what happens in Ahsoka, that could also possibly change the outcome of that. So we know we're getting Rey. In what capacity? If it's right after Rise of Skywalker, who knows? But I'm totally okay with her having another chance at that role and seeing what they can do with it. But
right. And I don't know. Ahsoka would be pretty old at this point, right?
She'd be in her 50s. Yeah.
Okay. So still there. Same with Luke, I guess.
We got to remember her species live longer too.
I see. Yeah. Well, here's my hope. If they're going to do this movie, this is the redemption of Luke movie. This is all I care about in this. I don't want to. I mean, that's the number one thing to me.
Luke needs a better ending.
A better send off.
They just did him. They did him dirty. Mark Hamill and Luke. They did him dirty.
Yes, and so if this movie is not about that, I'm not saying I'm not gonna watch it. I'm just saying I'll be thoroughly disappointed. This needs to be a Rey and Luke come together, or Luke passes the baton for real this time.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. You know what I mean? And so if they do that, yes, I'm all for it. And hopefully Filoni has a say in what's going on with some of these movies, although we don't know that yet. So speaking of Filoni, the other movie we know of, which again, no dates on this, is a Dave Filoni is attached to a New Republic movie. Here, I think I have a synopsis. Let me pull it up. Let's see. A new movie that plans to focus on the New Republic, the government body that comes into power in the wake of the Empire's implosion. Filoni says the movie will close out the interconnected stories told in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and other Disney Plus series. So this is the Endgame movie, possibly, you know what I mean?
Well, this is leading up to the sequels. That's the thing.
Right. And so, but this would be the culmination of all, like you said, the Disney Plus shows, of all the shows that Filoni has his hands in, you know, and is kind of him and Favreau kind of a deal. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm super hyped for this. I would, anything Filoni's attached to, I want to watch. And so,
and that will probably be like Thrawn's big ending. Or whatever that leads into the First Order. I mean, hey, let's be honest here. We're both hoping that something occurs that changes whatever we saw in the sequels. How realistic that is, can't say.
Yeah, but. And you know, Mandalorian and a lot of these shows have been focusing on the cloning technology, so I'm assuming he's going to use this to tie up the gaps with Palpatine and Snoke or whatever he's going to do something to fix all that. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So
some capacity.
Looking forward to that one. That one's be good. And then the last one that I know of, and we'll just talk about it. There's a James Mangold Star Wars movie, and this has kind of been slated as an origins of the Force kind of exploration.
This is the one I'm most excited about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And this one was kind of described at Mangold saying like he wants to do it like a biblical epic, like the old school 10 Commandments movies,
like
or
the genesis of the Jedi and the
correct.
Sith.
Like where did it all begin? What's going on here? And to your point, I'm excited about this too. I think all Star Wars fans are probably excited to see more about this, and I really hope they do this with care and the right way. You know, I don't. You're right. I don't want this one to be a flop. I want this movie to be strong and to really set up a backstory that we can then move forward from if we want to hear stories from origins or older stuff. So
this has the potential to, I mean, the possibilities are limitless here. Like they could really go anywhere in exploring the origins of the Jedi, the Sith, the like Night Sister magic, whatever they use, like even creatures like the Bendu from Rebels and other just creatures manifested of the Force, like
the Rakata, really, like all kinds of. How did the Force get to all sorts of species, and how did they use it?
Yeah, and I would wager that this is where the future of Star Wars is going to go for quite a while. They're going to go all the way back and really
bring
flesh
it back
out,
forward.
like because there's a lot of stories to be told. Inevitably, we'll arrive at Revan, and there's just so much good lore to be had there. So, yeah, this one could be awesome.
All right, so that's kind of. I think there's other movies and rumors of movies, so I don't want to go into all that. The only thing I'll say is that what I would like to see, and I think you're on board with me, is I really want to see an Old Republic movie or show. I'm not doesn't have to be a movie.
Show, but,
really, I would like a movie maybe that introduces it, and then maybe get into different shows or different parts of it. And so, either way, the Old Republic is maybe my favorite or one of my favorite eras. And so, thousands of Jedi, thousands of Sith, you know what I mean? And so, just so many stories that could be told. Obviously, Revan, a fan favorite. You know, I don't know if they would retell his story or anything like that.
Wow, that would be amazing if they did.
So, yes, I am super hype for that. And then kind of the last thing, too, before we go, what are your hopes for the movies? Are do you think any of these movies, or is like a reset, or what can be done to bring back the trust of some of those Star Wars fans who have walked away or just didn't come out and show support for the sequels? Is there a direction you
Oh
want to see them
man,
go? Is it a reset? Is it something else?
I don't know. I just think the general hive mind with fans is changing or shifting. I think the way that they produce this type of media is changing. And if I were to blend the two, if I were a producer, director, whatever, is it seems like the best course of action is to tell the stories through shows, flesh out characters, and then once that build has been hit, maybe create a movie that brings them all
Mm,
together, and it's like one big climactic
mm,
event.
mm,
Because I just think TV has proved that it's better at storytelling.
mm. You make a great point, right? The obviously the character development through shows is superior, but that big cinematic climactic event is done better in a on a movie screen, right? Like
Right.
a huge battle where there's no budget for,
Yeah.
CGI, where you can go crazy and do whatever you want. So I don't know. I agree. I think they need to keep going strong on the shows, which the track record is good. So I'm
Hmm.
not that worried, but they need to fix what they've done to Luke. I think
Absolutely.
old school OT people are not going to care at all about any movies going forward until you have kind of made that right. Now, either
Yeah.
that's through the World Between Worlds reset, like you've talked about many times,
Yep.
like if they do a remake of the OT, if they, it seems like everything that comes out these days is a remake anyway,
Yeah. Oh, you can only tell
appealing
us
to
the
our
same stories.
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The people who used to go to theaters are the only ones who
Yeah.
still go now. So
Hmm.
maybe. So they need to fix Luke. And then I think they need to double down on the Ahsoka, maybe Marvel stuff, getting into that crossover.
Hmm.
And you're right, this Origins movie could be a really big deal. And
Good.
so I
I
think
would say that and Ahsoka are the two most pivotal pieces of content that are
Well,
coming out.
OT people would definitely want to know the origins of the Force, even if they haven't watched anything since Solo
Right.
or any of the sequels for that matter. That is should be appealing to all Star Wars fans. And so the movie side of things, they have some work to do. So we're going to see over the next year or two what they do. And in the meantime, I'll be glued to my TV. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Watching the other stuff. So, man, I don't know. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We love
Yeah.
talking about this stuff. Star Wars Celebration just sparked a lot of conversation with us and a lot of these new shows and movies that they're talking about. So we just want to jump on here and give our thoughts and really want to see what you guys are thinking too. Are we on the same level here? Are we on the same wavelength? Are you loving the shows? Are you hoping the movies make a strong return? I really am. So
Yep.
anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. If you like this style of video, again, give us a like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next
All
one.
right. See you next time.
Later.